to think that having a small wedding would mean that you'd have less problems, right? But no. You have the same amount of problems. They're just different. They just look different for small weddings. Why? Well, hello, lovely humans, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Jamie Wolfrat, your online wedding planner, and if you haven't joined my wedding planning community, literally today is the day, because tomorrow we're doing a live Q&A call over there. I don't do lives here very often because the trolls and the bots are a lot, and it just gets to be, I don't know, just a little bit chaotic. So if you need your questions answered in live time from an actual trained professional who knows most of the time what they're talking about, you're going to want to go ahead and join our community right now. Don't miss out on that live call, $29 a month. You guys, when I tell you we charge our clients thousands of dollars for long-term planning, this is literally the same exact thing. I give the same information. I'm here for live calls. I can answer your questions. You get to join this amazing community. Stop struggling your way through wedding planning. It doesn't have to be this hard. Come join me. I will be on a live call tomorrow with you guys. Do not miss out on that. Now let's talk about small weddings, because there is this misconception that if you invite less people and it's smaller, it'll be less expensive and less stressful. And for some people, they're like, walk in the park, not a problem. I can cut my guest list down to 25 and I don't care if I hurt feelings and I don't care about, and then there's others who are like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't like any of this and people are mad. So I figured, let's make a video about small wedding big problems, all right? Not only is it catchy, but it's really accurate. So what are the big problems that plague small weddings? I'm glad you asked. Number one, how do you make it small? Like, how do you trim a guest list down? Who makes the cut? How are you supposed to make these decisions when you potentially have so many people that you love that you're like, I don't know how I'm supposed to invite or how I'm supposed to invite them. And it takes really honing in and maybe making some painful cuts to be able to even make it small enough to be considered a small wedding. For the record, 50 or less is kind of the number that we're talking about. Even 60, you're probably going to still run into some of these issues, but not as many as if you had like 25. That's hard. And if you're one of those people that you're like, oh, this has been a breeze. It hasn't been a problem at all. Good, great for you. Let's still encourage those who have had some difficulty planning a small wedding in the comments, okay? I've made an entire video about guest list do's and don'ts. I'm gonna go ahead and link that right here for you guys to check out. If you are struggling through this, you are going to need to do this process with a fine-tooth comb. Who do you talk to? For example, if you haven't spoken to this person the last 6 months, should you be inviting them? Did they have an impact on your relationship? Should you be inviting them? There's a whole process of questions that you should kind of work through, especially if you are trying to narrow it down to a small group of people. You need to be pretty meticulous about this. And then when you finally do get that guest list figured out, people have feelings and they share their opinions and you're like, great, here I am thinking I'm making a fiscally wise decision, or I just don't really want a big event, and then all of a sudden my mom has an opinion about my cake topper. I went out to dinner last night for a girlfriend's birthday, and the gal next to me, her and I were talking about it, and she's like, oh my gosh, my mom literally freaked out because I wanted T-Rex cake toppers. She's like, I couldn't believe that my mom would be so frustrated about a cake topper. She'd just never been this particular about something before. We did a video recently about the dark side of wedding planning, and Kara, my girlfriend, who is a bridal coach, like literally a life coach for brides, she's incredible. You should check her out, because this is how intense this season can be, that it could require a life coach for this season. She said it perfectly. She's like, your family and friends have an expectation for what they want your wedding day to look like. Whether that's fair or not, whether that's allowed or not, it doesn't matter. Like, your mom probably has a picture of what she wants your wedding day to look like. And if something comes along and ruffles those feathers, then that picture is a balloon with a hole popped into it. So you'll start to see that people around you have these grandiose opinions. Maybe they really wanted you to have a big wedding and they're so offended that you wouldn't invite aunts and uncles, but instead you're inviting college roommates. How dare you do that? And navigating these can be like it's a lot to navigate. You'll have people that are offended that they weren't invited. People that are offended that you didn't invite somebody else. Someone will get frustrated that you're not using a traditional venue, or that you want T-Rex cake toppers. People are going to have opinions about your event, even more so if it goes against the traditional norm and you go small. Whether that's because you want to stick to a really small budget or you want to stick to a really small guest count, because it is outside of what so many traditional weddings are, people are gonna have some opinions. If you're not using a traditional venue, if you're not using traditional caterer, baker, florist, etc., people will have thoughts on that. So it does take a very strong backbone sometimes in these circumstances to be like, I can see that you're very passionate about this element of our wedding. Fiance and I have chosen to do this because it's important to us, or this is why we've chosen to chosen to do it this way. But again, I appreciate your enthusiasm for our wedding day. We ask that you respect our wishes, and maybe we can get your help on this instead and like shove them in a different direction or find a different way to end that conversation. There's something about wedding planning that like tests those boundaries with family members and friends, right? Even with your fiance where you're like, no. And then one of the biggest problems that I see so many small weddings run into are minimums. Shop minimums, catering minimums, rental delivery minimums. It's basically, if you don't spend this amount, we're not gonna work with you. If you don't have catering for 100 people, well, we're going to charge you for catering for 100 people, even if you have 40. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. They're like, oh, it's okay. You can just order fancier things. And you're like, I don't want fancier things. I just want you to cater for 40 people. And they're like, sorry, we can't, but we can charge you $10,000. It's those kinds of things where you're just like, wait, what? And that applies to bartending. That can apply to your baker and your desserts. That can also apply to florals, which would affect how many centerpieces you have, how many bouquets, boutonnieres, etc. And coming from a vendor perspective, I totally get that. Like, my cousin is a dessert table baker. She's been on this channel before. If someone wants to place an order for only 24 items on a wedding day, like on a very popular Saturday or whatnot, she has to get all of her ingredients out to only make 24 items. Like, she really does work in mass, so it makes it very inconvenient to work on a small scale. So of course it makes sense for her to say, no, I have like a 3 or 4 dozen minimum. I'm not going to do anything below that. And even at the 3 or 4 dozen, it doesn't make sense for me to deliver them. So you'll need to do a pickup. If you are planning a small wedding, you will run into these minimums that make sense from a vendor standpoint, but can feel like the most frustrating because you're like, why is no one working with me? And this is where you're going to need to get a little bit unconventional. As I've posted this video, we've done 3 videos out of a 4 video series of like how to plan a wedding for $20,000, $15,000, $10,000, and we have the 5K one coming up. I would highly encourage you go check out that playlist because it'll really walk you through some non-traditional ideas that will help you to save some money. If you were trying to do a small wedding, unless they have some sort of elopement or micro wedding package, I would not go with the uber traditional venue that's going to have some sort of like $6,000 to $10,000 to $20,000 catering minimum or bar minimum. You're going to want to get a little bit more creative with this. You're going to want to go with more of a shell venue that's just literally a location that you book. Maybe you're going to have someone pick up the rentals for you instead of having them delivered because you haven't met the rental minimum. Maybe you end up DIYing your bar and hiring a bartender to serve that instead of going with a full bartending service. And then when it comes to florals, maybe you end up DIYing them instead, because if you're only doing 50 people, you have what, 5, 6 tables? That's a lot less centerpieces than 100 or 150. It makes it a lot more achievable. And if you're unsure where you fall on the floral scale, like the amount of time, energy, money that you want to put towards this, check out my floral quiz right here. It'll walk you through all the different options and help you come up with the perfect option for you. Whether that's completely DIYing from scratch or ordering pre-made centerpieces, yes, those are a thing. You're going to want to check that out to help you really hone in what that looks like. I mean, your DJ doesn't really care about your guest count. They're still going to charge the same amount. Now, if you have less hours, they might charge you less, but their cost isn't dependent on the amount of people you invite. Same with your photographer. Your photographer's not going to charge you less because you only have 40 guests, right? They will charge you less if you use less of their time. That's the difference there. Heck, there are even wedding planners that won't talk to certain couples if they aren't spending either a certain amount of money or don't have a certain guest count. Like me, for example, if someone came to me and they had a $10,000 wedding budget, I would say, please don't hire me. Please don't hire me. Now, that's literally why I created the master plan community, like so I can help you without taking all of your money, because I didn't have any money when I got married. We had like $8,500. I forget if it was $8,000 or $8,500. I don't know. It's been a while. We didn't have money, okay? So I couldn't hire anybody to do any of this. That's why this whole community was created, so I could help you. So I could help you through this process. But I would not work with someone who has a $10,000 wedding budget because they shouldn't be spending money on me. So it's not a snooty factor. It's just they should really be focusing those finances elsewhere, right? I would rather them have a DJ or food or florals. Like, if they want to spend it on me, sure. But in the grand scheme of things, that money should probably be focused elsewhere. And then lastly, a big problem I didn't even think about but was brought up in our Facebook group was how to make it still feel like a party. Like, if you have 35 people, are they all going to be on the dance floor? Like, how do you make this, like, what's the dance floor going to look like? It's going to be 4.5 people? Like, what do you do? How do you still make it feel like a fun and exciting event? And there are so many directions that you can go with this, right? First of all, make sure your dance floor is pretty small. Don't make it too big. If it's a big dance floor, people feel really awkward. They want to feel like they're not seen, which means the second element to that is make sure you have the proper lighting for the dance floor. If it's too well lit, people will feel like they could be seen, which they can. So make sure there's an option to dim the lights or turn turn them off, as long as it's still safe for people to walk around, etc. Maybe your DJ has some sort of fun party lighting, but make sure it's not super well lit. So if you really want that dance vibe going, small dance floor, not too bright. In fact, the darker the better, as long as people can walk around without falling on their faces. And make sure you have a killer playlist or a good DJ. I'm always on team DJ, okay? Like, I think a DJ is always a good investment because they're the person with a microphone on your wedding. Like, that is some big power, okay? Now, maybe you don't want it to feel like a dance party, but you still want people to feel really connected. I would recommend maybe doing like a welcome dinner or an open house for everyone who has come in for the event the night before your wedding in lieu of a rehearsal dinner. That doesn't mean you have to pay for everybody. You can do it open house style at a bar where people can just come in, grab a drink, hang out with you for a little bit, and go on their merry way. Or to do something like a brunch the day after, because if we're talking about 30 people, 25 people, you can either, of course, choose to pay for this meal or not pay for this meal. It's going to be a much more well-rounded weekend instead of like a 200-person event where you barely get to see the couple. Don't get me wrong, I love a big party. But if you want your guests to still feel really engaged, consider doing some sort of outside element the day before or the day after to make it a weekend experience instead of just one day. And then when you're at your event, be sure to do table visits. Stop by, talk to everyone, shake their hands. You can do that with 45 people. It's a lot harder to do that with 145. Just remember that your mood and your experience will affect your guests' moods and their experience as well. So if you want to get on the dance floor, they'll join you out there. If you want to stand around and have casual conversation, they will join you there as well. This is a beautifully intimate group of some of your favorite humans. They will want this to be just as much of a joyous day for you as you want it to be for them. So that's all we have for this week's video, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. How about you? What has been a wedding win and a wedding fail recently? Like, what is one thing you're like, yes, I can't believe that happened, and like, oh, that sucks. Let me know in the comments below. As always, I love hearing from you guys, and you guys do such a good job supporting each other in the comment section. It's beautiful. And again, before you go, do not miss out on tomorrow's live call in the Master Plan community. I would love to see you there and answer your questions in real time. If you like this video, jump on down there, hit that like button, and subscribe. Like, seriously, subscribe. 60% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed. I see you, and I love you, and I want you to join me. Thank you. And until next week, bye, guys.